The plants that everyone ignored, the thorny scrub, the riverside weed, the scraggly desert bush, turned out to be exactly where God hid his most powerful medicine. You have been walking past a natural pharmacy for your whole life, and nobody told you what was actually in it. Stay with us, because in the next few minutes, we are going to change the way you see every overlooked plant in the landscape of the Bible, and give you something genuinely practical you can use for your health, starting today. Chapter 1. The Thorn Bush. The day God showed up in a plant nobody wanted. You know, if you had asked me to guess where the most important conversation in human history took place, I probably would have said a mountain summit at sunrise, or a great temple, or at least somewhere impressive. A thorny little shrub on the side of a desert mountain? That would not have been my first guess. But here's what Exodus chapter 3, verse 2 says. The angel of the Lord appeared to Moses in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. And that small, overlooked, prickly plant changed everything. Now, let me tell you something about the thorn bush of the Sinai desert. The species most likely described here is Ziziphus spina Christi, which goes by a beautiful name in English, the Christ thorn tree. And here is something I find genuinely remarkable. Christian tradition has long held that the crown of thorns placed on Jesus during his crucifixion was woven from the branches of this same tree. Think about that for a moment. The plant that witnessed the beginning of the story of redemption, the burning bush where God called Moses, may be the same plant that was part of the end of that story. Same thorns, different moment, same God. Now, Moses was not exactly having a great season of life when this happened. He had been living in the desert for 40 years. 40 years of laying low, tending sheep, quietly hoping nobody would remember who he used to be. He was not on a spiritual retreat. He was just doing his job. And then something caught his eye. The text says he turned aside to look. He changed direction. He left his path. That one act of curiosity, of paying attention to something a little unusual, started a chain of events that set millions of people free. I love that. Because you and I walk past unusual things every single day. Most of the time we keep moving. Moses stopped. Now, here is where I want to talk to you about your health for a minute, because the thornbush family turns out to be genuinely extraordinary. The Ziziphus family, which includes the Christ thorn of the Bible, is closely related to the jujube fruit tree, sometimes called the Chinese date. And if you have never tried jujube fruit, you are in for a nice surprise. Studies suggest that jujube fruit contains compounds that may support restful sleep and reduce feelings of anxiety. For anyone who has struggled with those 3 a.m. wake-ups that become more common as we get older, that is a pretty meaningful finding. Studies also suggest that jujube and related Ziziphus species contain flavonoids and saponins that support healthy blood sugar levels, which matters enormously for those of us watching our glucose as we age. And then there is goji berry, which belongs to the Lycium family, a close botanical neighbor of the thorn bushes of the Sinai region. You have probably seen goji berries at the grocery store or health food section, those little dried red berries. Maybe you wondered if they were actually worth buying. Well, studies suggest goji berries contain unusually high levels of zeaxanthin, which is a compound specifically known to support eye health. Macular degeneration is one of the most common vision concerns for people over 60, and zeaxanthin is one of the nutrients most associated with protecting against it. 2 tablespoons of dried goji berries in your morning oatmeal or yogurt. That is genuinely easy. That is genuinely good for you. And it connects you, in a small, beautiful way, to the landscape of the burning bush. If you can find cedar honey at a Middle Eastern grocery store or online, that is another wonderful option. Cedar honey is made by bees that forage on Ziziphus flowers, and studies suggest it has exceptional antimicrobial and antioxidant properties. It is more expensive than regular honey, but a small jar goes a long way, and it has been prized in the region for literally thousands of years. From today, start with just 2 tablespoons of dried goji berries added to your breakfast. Your eyes, your immune system, and your energy levels will quietly thank you, and you will have a small connection to the most significant piece of desert shrubbery in human history. Now, the thing I keep coming back to about the thorn bush is this. God did not show up in the tallest tree. He did not choose the most fragrant flower or the most beloved plant in the ancient world. He chose the thorny, scrubby, overlooked bush that shepherds walked past 100 times a day. And the message in that choice feels very personal to me, Because most of us have parts of our lives that feel a little like a thorn bush. Not impressive, maybe a little prickly, maybe a little dry and uninviting. The ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the repetitive routine, the season of life that does not feel particularly dramatic or significant. And God says, I show up there too. In fact, that is often exactly where he shows up. The question is whether we are paying enough attention to notice. Moses turned aside. He changed direction just long enough to look at something unusual. What might you find if you did the same today? From the sacred fire of the thorn bush, we walk now into the wild, tangled edges of the field, and we find a plant that most people push through without a second thought. But Scripture used it as the sharpest mirror ever held up to the human heart. Chapter 2. The bramble. The uncomfortable question about who you really are. All right, I want to tell you about the most honest political parable ever written. It is 3,000 years old. It is in the book of Judges chapter 9, and the main character is a blackberry bush. Here is how it goes. The trees of the forest decided they wanted a king, so they went to the olive tree first, and the olive tree said, "Should I give up my oil, with which both God and humans are honored, just to hold sway over the trees? No, thank you." Then they went to the fig tree. Same answer. The fig knew its purpose. It had figs to produce. Then the grapevine. Same thing. Why would I leave my fruit, which cheers both God and humans, to go rule over the trees? And then they went to the bramble. And the bramble said, "Absolutely. Come take shelter in my shade." Now, if you have ever pushed through a blackberry thicket in your garden, you know that is a slightly ridiculous offer. Brambles do not provide shade. They provide scratches. They grab onto your clothes. They have these little curved thorns that are specifically designed, it seems, to not let go. But the real punchline is what the bramble says next. If you genuinely want me as your king, come to me. And if not, let fire come out of the bramble and consume the cedars of Lebanon. Jotham, who tells this parable, is warning about what happens when capable people decline responsibility and incapable people leap at it. The noble trees all had real work to do. They were too busy producing oil and fruit and wine to waste time holding a title. The bramble took the crown because the bramble had nothing better to offer. Now, I want to sit with that idea for just a moment, because I think it asks each of us a genuinely useful question. Are you doing the work you were actually made for? Or have you picked up a crown somewhere along the way that was never really yours to wear? That is a question worth sitting with over a cup of coffee. But now let me tell you something delightful, because the bramble family turns out to produce something that is genuinely wonderful for your health. Those blackberries that grow wild in fields and gardens across America, they are practically a superfood. Studies suggest that blackberries contain some of the highest antioxidant levels of any commonly eaten fruit. That deep purple-black color comes from compounds called anthocyanins, and studies suggest these compounds may actually support brain health and memory function, particularly in older adults. I want to say that again because it is worth hearing clearly. The humble blackberry, the one that grows wild in your backyard or costs a few dollars at the farmer's market, may be one of the best things you can eat for your cognitive health as you age. Studies also suggest that the ellagic acid found in blackberries supports the body's ability to manage cellular inflammation. And chronic low-level inflammation, as your doctor has probably mentioned, is connected to an enormous number of the health concerns that become more common after 50 and 60. Blackberry leaf tea is something most Americans have never tried, but it has been used in traditional European medicine for centuries. Steep a small handful of dried blackberry leaves in boiling water for about 10 minutes, and you have a gently astringent tea that studies suggest may help soothe mild digestive irritation and mouth or throat inflammation. Blackberries are also a good source of vitamin C and vitamin K, which together support immune function and bone health, both of which matter more, not less, as we get older. From today, keep a bag of frozen blackberries in your freezer. It is one of the most practical and genuinely evidence-supported things you can do for your brain and your heart. Toss half a cup into your morning smoothie, stir them into yogurt, or just thaw a small bowl and eat them as dessert. Your body will thank you every single time. Now, the spiritual message of the bramble is this. The olive, the fig, and the vine all knew their purpose. They were not distracted by the offer of a crown because they were too busy doing the real work. Purpose is a remarkable clarifier. When you know what you are actually for, the temptations that used to be tempting simply stop being very interesting. The bramble grabbed the crown because it had not figured out what it was for. You already know what you are for. even if it feels quiet, even if it feels ordinary, even if it does not come with a title. That is your oil. That is your fruit. That is your wine. Now, from the bramble thicket, we move to the water's edge. And there, growing tall and slender along the banks of every ancient river in the Holy Land, is a plant so essential to civilization that without it, you might not have a Bible to read today. Chapter 3. The reed, the plant that wrote the scriptures, and the promise that will not let you go. Let me share something with you that I did not expect to find when I started researching this. The English word paper comes from papyrus. The word canon, as in the biblical canon, comes from the ancient Hebrew word kane, which means reed. The word channel comes from the same root. Even the word cane, as in sugar cane, traces back to this small, humble water plant. A plant that grew along the Jordan River, that you could pull out of the mud with one hand, shaped the vocabulary of Western civilization. But before we get to the language, let me tell you about the most important verse in Scripture connected to the reed. Because this one, I think you may already know, even if you did not know where it came from. Isaiah chapter 42, verse 3. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. That is one of the tenderest promises in the entire Old Testament, and it is talking about a reed plant, because here is what you need to know about reeds. They are tall, they are graceful, they grow in thick stands along riverbanks, and they are hollow inside. When a reed is healthy, you can cut it, dry it, and it becomes a beautiful instrument. A flute that makes music, or a pen that writes scripture. But a bruised reed, one that has been bent or cracked partway through, is useless for those purposes. In the ancient world, you would toss it aside. It cannot hold the breath for music anymore. And God says, I will not throw it away. Now, let me sit with that for a moment together. Because I think some of you listening to this today are carrying something that feels a little like being a bruised reed. Not broken all the way, not shattered, but cracked somewhere. Bent, not quite the same as you were before. A health diagnosis, a loss, a relationship that left marks, a season that lasted longer than you thought it would. Isaiah says, the one who is coming will not break what is already bent. That is not just poetry. That is a promise. Now, the reed plant itself, Phragmites australis and Arundo donax, turns out to have a quiet but real health story. In traditional Chinese medicine, the root of the common reed, called lujian, has been used for over 2,000 years. Studies suggest it contains antioxidant compounds and has been used traditionally to support respiratory health, particularly for clearing mild lung inflammation and soothing irritated airways. If you have ever struggled with that dry, scratchy winter cough that lingers, or the kind of throat irritation that comes with seasonal changes, a tea made from dried reed root may be worth exploring. You can find it at Chinese herbal medicine suppliers, and it has a mild, clean, slightly sweet flavor. Reed stems are also naturally rich in silica, the mineral your body uses to build and maintain connective tissue, including in your joints and bones. As we age, silica intake becomes more relevant, particularly for joint comfort and bone density. Silica-rich plant supplements, often made from horsetail, which is a botanical relative, are available at most health food stores. From today, if joint comfort or bone health is something you are thinking about, ask your health food store about silica supplements from plant sources. And if respiratory health is a concern, look for dried reed root tea at an Asian grocery or herbal supplier. Both are gentle, both have centuries of traditional use behind them, and both connect you to one of the most quietly significant plants in all of Scripture. The spiritual message of the reed is deeply practical. You were designed to be a conduit. Something was meant to pass through you and come out the other side as music, or as words, or as comfort, or as something that feeds another person. The hollow center is not a weakness. It is how the music happens, and even bruised. You are not discarded. From the reed at the water's edge, we travel now to a plant so essential to ancient civilization that its name became the word for all knowledge written down. And the first time it appears in Scripture, it is not as a scroll. It is as a basket holding a sleeping child. Chapter 4. The papyrus, the plant that saved Moses and preserved the word. I want you to think about something for a moment. Every piece of Scripture you have ever read, every psalm, every prophecy, every letter from Paul, Every gospel, for the first 1,000 years of their existence, all of those words were written on a material made from a marsh plant growing at the edge of the Nile River. Cyperus papyrus, the papyrus plant. And here's the connection that gets me every time. Our word paper comes from papyrus, papier in French, papel in Spanish, papier in German. Every word in every language that means the thing you write on carries inside it the memory of this one plant growing in an Egyptian swamp. But the first time papyrus appears in the Bible, it is not as a writing surface. Exodus chapter 2, verse 3. She got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it. The child was Moses, the plant that would eventually carry the Torah, the Psalms, the prophets, and the entire written tradition of faith first appeared in Scripture as a cradle, as protection, as the thing that kept the most important person in the story safe until the right moment arrived. I find that extraordinarily moving. Now, the papyrus plant itself grows in warm, shallow water, and it can reach heights of 15 feet. Ancient Egyptians used it for everything: boat building, sandal making, rope, food. The inner pith of young papyrus stems was actually eaten by ordinary people along the Nile for thousands of years. The ancient world understood that this plant was not just useful, it was essential. Now, from a health perspective, the most relevant members of the papyrus family for practical modern use are its close relatives in the Cyperus genus. Cyperus rotundus, commonly called nutgrass or purple nutsedge, is one of those plants that every gardener considers a stubborn weed and almost nobody realizes is actually one of the most documented medicinal plants in Ayurvedic and traditional African medicine. Studies suggest that Cyperus rotundus contains sesquiterpene compounds with meaningful anti-inflammatory properties, and studies suggest it may help support healthy blood sugar regulation, which makes it directly relevant for anyone managing diabetes or pre-diabetic conditions. And then there is the tiger nut, which is the tuber of Cyperus esculentus, another close relative. Tiger nuts have become genuinely popular in health food circles in recent years, and for good reason. Tiger nuts are naturally sweet, which makes them satisfying as a snack. But what makes them especially interesting is that they contain a type of fiber called resistant starch, which studies suggest feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut, helps stabilize blood sugar after meals, and supports overall digestive health. For anyone managing gut health, or simply trying to support the kind of healthy digestion that becomes more important as we age, tiger nuts are a wonderfully practical option. You can find tiger nut milk at many health food stores and larger grocery chains now. It is naturally sweet, it is dairy-free, and it has a pleasant, slightly earthy flavor that is really quite nice over oatmeal or in coffee. From today, try substituting tiger nut milk for your regular milk or cream in your morning coffee or oatmeal for a week. It is genuinely delicious, it is gut-friendly, and it carries a 4,000-year history of human nourishment behind it. Dried tiger nuts are also available as a snack at health food stores. A small handful in the afternoon is satisfying, blood sugar friendly, and better for you than almost any packaged snack you could choose. The spiritual message of the papyrus is about what the hidden season is actually for. Moses spent his first months hidden in a basket, invisible, unknown, protected. There was no fanfare, there was no announcement. The most important person in the story was quietly being kept. I think about the seasons of life that feel like that. The seasons when nothing seems to be moving. When you feel like you are in the reeds at the edge of the river, going nowhere, visible to almost no one. Those seasons are not wasted. The papyrus held Moses until the right moment, and sometimes the most faithful thing God does for us is simply this. He keeps us. He keeps us until we are ready, until the moment is ready, until everything is exactly as it needs to be. And when that moment arrives, we will wonder how we were so patient in the reeds. From the sheltering banks of the Nile, we travel now to the open desert. And out in that harsh, sun-hammered wilderness, under a scraggly bush that barely offers enough shade for one tired man, we find one of the most honest moments in all of Scripture. Chapter 5, the broom tree. The permission to rest you have been waiting for. I am going to tell you something that a lot of Sunday sermons tend to skip over. The most famous prophet in the history of the northern kingdom of Israel, the man who called down fire from heaven in front of a crowd of thousands, the man who stood alone against 450 false prophets and walked away the clear winner, immediately afterward ran into the desert and sat down under a bush, and asked God to let him die. 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 4. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I have had enough. Now, I have heard that verse described as a failure of faith. I have also heard it described as a moment of profound spiritual weakness. But I want to suggest something different. I think that may be the most honest prayer in the entire Bible. Elijah had just done something enormous. He had given absolutely everything. And when a threatening message arrived immediately afterward, his body and his spirit simply ran out. The broom tree he collapsed under is called Ritama Raitam. It grows to about 10 feet tall in the Sinai desert, with thin green branches and small white flowers in spring. In a landscape where shade is genuinely hard to find, its canopy provides real relief. And it is exactly the kind of overlooked, unremarkable plant that nobody would point to on a map and say, that is a spiritually significant location. And yet, God showed up there. An angel came, did not bring a sermon, did not bring a rebuke, did not ask Elijah why his faith was so shaky, brought bread, brought water, touched him gently and said, get up and eat. Elijah ate, and then went back to sleep. The angel came again, touched him again, and said, the journey is too great for you. Eat. Now, here is what I want you to hear in that phrase. The journey is too great for you. Not, you are too weak. Not, you have failed. Not, pull yourself together. Just, this is genuinely hard. Your body needs care. The road ahead is long. Take care of yourself first. Modern research has a name for what Elijah was experiencing. We call it burnout, and studies consistently show that burnout is not a character flaw. It is what happens when sustained output, sustained stress, sustained giving exceeds the body's ability to recover. God's prescription? Sleep. Real food, more sleep, and then a gentle walk. He gave Elijah 40 days of walking through the wilderness before the next assignment arrived. I think about that prescription every time someone tells me they feel guilty for resting. The journey is too great for you. Eat something. Sleep. Walk slowly somewhere beautiful. Then we will talk about what comes next. Now, Ritama Raitam itself contains compounds that make it unsuitable for internal use, so I am not going to recommend you make tea from it. But I do want to talk about the health science connected to the recovery protocol God gave Elijah, because it is remarkably well supported by modern research. Sleep is the single most powerful recovery tool the human body has. Studies suggest that chronic sleep deprivation is associated with increased systemic inflammation, impaired immune function, elevated cortisol, and accelerated cognitive decline. When God let Elijah sleep, he was prescribing the most effective intervention available. For those of us who struggle with sleep quality as we age, there are some genuinely helpful natural options. Studies suggest that magnesium glycinate supports the body's natural sleep mechanisms, and many older adults are moderately deficient in magnesium. Tart cherry juice contains natural melatonin precursors, and studies suggest a small glass before bed may improve sleep quality and duration. From today, try a small glass of tart cherry juice about an hour before bed. It is pleasant, it is natural, it has a real research base behind it, and it connects in a small, sweet way to the tradition of using food as medicine that goes back to the very moment God sent an angel to feed Elijah under the broom tree. And if you have been pushing yourself too hard lately, if there is a voice somewhere in you that sounds a little like, I have had enough, I want to give you the same permission the angel gave the great prophet. Sit down, eat something, rest. The journey is too great for you to run on empty, and when you are ready, the road continues. From the quiet desert rest stop, we rise now into the flowering meadows of Galilee, and there, in a field full of wild flowers that have absolutely no anxiety whatsoever about their situation, we find one of the most beautiful and practically liberating lessons Jesus ever taught. Chapter 6. The lily, the flower that told a whole generation to calm down. Can I ask you something? When was the last time you went outside, found a flower, and just looked at it? Not photographed it, not quickly noticed it while walking past. Just actually looked at it. Jesus did that. And then he pointed at the wildflowers of the Galilean hillside and said something that I think we have been trying to fully absorb for 2,000 years. Luke chapter 12, verse 27. Consider how the wildflowers grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. Now, The wildflowers he was pointing at were most likely Lilium candidum, the Madonna lily, or possibly the brilliant red anemones and poppies that carpet the hillsides of northern Israel every spring. If you have ever seen photographs of those fields in bloom, you understand exactly what he was pointing at. It is extraordinary. And he said, "Look at that. God dressed that." Then he made it personal. If God takes such care over a flower that lasts one season and is gone, how much more does he care about you? The spiritual punchline is gentle. It is not a rebuke. It is almost an affectionate nudge. You worry too much, friend. Look at the lilies. They figured something out that we keep forgetting. Now, the lily family in the Bible is the gateway to some of the most health-supporting plants in the entire human diet, because the extended Liliaceae family includes garlic, onion, leeks, chives, asparagus, and aloe vera. And if you have ever wondered whether garlic really earns its legendary reputation, the science is genuinely impressive. Studies suggest that allicin, the compound responsible for garlic's distinctive aroma, has broad-spectrum antimicrobial properties and may support cardiovascular health by helping to manage blood pressure and reduce arterial inflammation. Studies also suggest that regular garlic consumption is associated with improved immune function. If you are the kind of person who gets every cold that goes around, adding more garlic to your daily cooking is one of the most evidence-supported changes you can make. Onions contain quercetin, which we have talked about before, and studies suggest quercetin supports cardiovascular health and may help reduce the kind of chronic low-grade inflammation that underlies so many conditions that become more common after 60. Leeks, which are mentioned by name in the Bible when the Israelites wandering in the desert lamented leaving them behind in Egypt, contain similar compounds to onions, plus additional prebiotic fiber that supports gut health. And aloe vera, which most Americans know only as a sunburn remedy, is actually a powerful digestive support when used internally. Studies suggest that the inner gel of aloe vera leaves contains compounds that support the integrity of the intestinal lining, which is particularly relevant for anyone dealing with digestive inflammation, heartburn, or irritable bowel concerns. From today, make garlic and onion the foundation of your cooking in a way you may not have been doing before. Not just a little bit. Actually build your soups, your stir-fries, your sauces around them. Studies suggest you need meaningful amounts for the therapeutic benefit. 2 to 4 cloves of garlic per day, raw or lightly cooked, is what most research suggests for cardiovascular support. And if you have never tried an aloe vera gel supplement for digestive health, it is worth a conversation with your doctor. Look for inner leaf-only products, as the outer leaf contains compounds that can cause digestive upset. The spiritual message of the lily is this: consider how the wildflowers grow, not how they strive, not how they perform, not how they earn their beauty. They grow, they unfold. They do exactly what they were designed to do, and in doing so, they are more beautiful than anything human hands have ever made. There is a version of your life that sounds like, if I just work a little harder, try a little more, earn my worth a little better, then I will deserve to be here. And there is the lily version, which sounds like, you are already here, you are already clothed, you are already valued, not because of what you produce, but because of who made you. The lily never worries about whether it is blooming enough. It just blooms. And we are almost at the end of our journey together. But we have one more plant to visit, a flower so beautiful, so mysterious, so layered with meaning, that scholars have been debating its identity for 2,000 years. And I think you will find, as we sit with it, that the mystery is exactly the point. Chapter 7, The Rose of Sharon, the identity that needs no confirmation. I want to share something with you that I think is one of the most quietly profound things in the entire Bible. At the very beginning of the Song of Solomon, in chapter 2, verse 1, the beloved speaks. And the first thing she says about herself is not someone else's opinion of her. It is not a report card. It is not a title someone else gave her. She says, I am a rose of Sharon and a lily of the valleys. I am. Present tense. First person. Simple and clear. No apology, no qualification, no waiting for someone else to agree. Now, here is the thing I find fascinating. No one knows for certain what the Rose of Sharon actually is. Biblical botanists have been debating this for 2,000 years. The leading candidates include Tulipa agenensis, the wild red tulip that still blooms in the Sharon plain of Israel every spring. Also on the list is Narcissus tazetta, the cluster narcissus, and Cistus incanus, the pink rock rose of the Mediterranean hillsides. And I love that we do not know for certain, because the beloved did not need a botanist to confirm her identity. She did not need a committee to classify her. She knew who she was, and she said it plainly. I am. Now, here is where the health story gets genuinely exciting, because the Narcissus family, which is one of the strongest candidates for the Rose of Sharon, contributed one of the most significant medical discoveries of the last century. A compound called galantamine, originally derived from plants in the Narcissus and snowdrop family, is currently approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration for the treatment of mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. Let me say that plainly. A flower that blooms in the valleys of the Holy Land helped produce a drug that is currently being used to help hundreds of thousands of families deal with one of the most devastating diseases of our time. Studies suggest galantamine helps preserve the chemical signals in the brain that support memory and cognitive function. If you have a parent or spouse managing early or moderate Alzheimer's, this medication may already be part of their care, and it traces its origins back to a small, flowering bulb growing in the landscape of Scripture. That connection between ancient land and modern medicine never stops moving me. Now, for practical daily use, the most accessible member of this plant family is Cistus incanus, the rock rose. Cistus incanus tea has developed a real following in European and natural health communities, and studies suggest it contains some of the highest polyphenol levels of any herbal tea measured in research. Studies have found its antioxidant activity to be notably high, and studies suggest it may support immune function, particularly in relation to respiratory health. It is available from specialty herbal tea suppliers and online, and it is genuinely pleasant to drink, with a slightly floral, slightly astringent taste that pairs beautifully with honey. Rock rose essential oil, made from the cistus plant, is also available and has been used in traditional Mediterranean skincare for centuries. Studies suggest it may support the skin's natural healing and regeneration, which makes it a gentle option for mature skin that needs extra care and hydration. From today, order a small bag of cistus tea and add it to your afternoon routine. Steep a heaped teaspoon for 8 to 10 minutes, add honey, and enjoy it as a quietly beautiful, extraordinarily ancient beverage that connects you to the hillsides of the Holy Land. And if skincare is something you think about, look for rock rose or cistus face oil. A few drops diluted in your regular moisturizer can make a meaningful difference over time. But the deepest gift of the Rose of Sharon is not in its compounds. It is in those two words, I am. The beloved knew who she was without needing an argument for it. She did not say, I have been told I am beautiful. She did not say, people generally agree that I am. She said, I am. And here is the connection that I think is sacred. When Moses stood at the burning thorn bush and asked God his name, God said, I am who I am, the great I am. And the beloved in the Song of Solomon, describing herself in the same language, was doing something extraordinary. She was saying, I know who I am because I know who made me. You are not waiting to become something worth noticing. You already are something worth noticing. You were designed with specific beauty, a specific fragrance, a specific purpose that no one else in the history of humanity has ever carried or ever will. And that does not require external confirmation to be real. The Rose of Sharon did not wait for the scholars to agree on her species before she bloomed. She bloomed. And I pray that you take that permission with you today. Outro. The garden was always meant for you. We have walked a long road together in this series. From the towering cedars of Lebanon to a thorny desert shrub that most people never notice. From the wood of the Ark of the Covenant to the fragile reed growing at the water's edge. From the basket that held Moses to the wilderness tree that sheltered a prophet who thought he was finished. 15 trees in our first journey. 7 more in this one. And every single one of them said something. The thorn bush said, I show up in the ordinary if you are paying attention. The bramble said, do the work you were actually made for, and the titles will not tempt you. The reed said, you are not discarded because you are bruised. The papyrus said, the hidden season is a protected season. The broom tree said, the journey is too great for you to do without rest. Eat, sleep, walk slowly, then continue. The lily said, you are already clothed in more dignity than you know. Stop straining, just bloom. And the Rose of Sharon said the most simple, most radical, most ancient thing of all. I am. You and I get to stand at the intersection of something remarkable. We have the ancient wisdom of Scripture, preserved through thousands of years on papyrus scrolls and copied by reed pens and carried through every storm that tried to destroy it. And we have modern science, which is one study at a time, catching up to what the ancient world observed, simply by paying attention to the world God made. And every plant in this journey, every thorn and leaf and root and flower, is a sentence in a letter that has been written to you personally, not to humanity in the abstract, to you. So here is my gentle encouragement as we close. The next time you add goji berries to your oatmeal, think about the burning bush. The next time you pick up a handful of blackberries, think about a parable about who you are truly made to be. The next time you drink a cup of herbal tea, think about the scribes who copied the Psalms with a reed pen by lamplight and trusted that their work would matter. And the next time you look in the mirror, try saying 2 words. I am. Not explaining who you are, not qualifying it, not waiting for agreement. Just, I am. You are here. You are clothed. You are loved by the same. One who clothed the lilies of the field and called a shepherd by name from a burning bush and kept a baby safe in a papyrus basket and sent an angel with bread and water to a man who had given everything he had. That God has not changed. And neither, I am convinced, has his attention to you. The garden is still speaking, and you were always meant to be in it. Shalom. Peace be with you.